Helo na, chroeso i'n myfyrdod diweddara ni yma o Eglwys Gymraeg Canol Llundain. A very warm welcome to all of you who are joining us for this, our weekly bilingual meditation from the Welsh Church of Central London. And we begin as usual with a brief word of prayer in Welsh, firstly, followed by English. Felly, cydweddiwn, let us all pray. Arglwyddau'n Duw, diolchwn dy fod gyda ni yn wastadol. Yn ystod y cyfnodau drwg, yn ogystal â'r cyfnodau da, yr amseroedd anodd yn ogystal â'r hawdd, yr adegau trist mewn bywyd yn ogystal â'r llawen. Lord our God, we thank you that you are always with us during the bad times as well as the good, the difficult as well as the easy, the sad times as well as the happy. Arglwydd pob gobaith, cliw ein gweddi nawr yn enw Crist. Amen. I'd like to draw your attention for a short while today to a verse in Paul's letter to the Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 5. Here's the verse in Welsh. Nith a dawaf fyth ac ni chefna farnat ddim. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Now, I mentioned in last week's meditation the importance of searching the scriptures, not merely being satisfied with reading them. There may well be a verse which would exactly fit your very need and present situation, but you may not know of it and as a consequence miss out on its comfort and help. So near and yet so far, dyna'r ddywediad yn Saesneg ynddo fe. A rwy'n cofio fel llawer ohonoch chi, dwi'n siŵr, gorfod dysgu penodau cyfan a salmau cyfan ar y cof ar gyfer y cwrdd cwarter ar Gymanfa. Efallai braidd yn ddiflas ar y pryd, ond wy'n ddiolchgar tu hwnt amdano fe nawr. Many are able to quote lines upon lines of familiar poetry and other prose, but shouldn't we as Christians store up these great promises of God in our memories as well? Yn ogystal â chwilio a dysgu'r ysgrythurau, profi'r ysgrythurau hefyd, test the scriptures by the light of your own experience. Search them, yes, store them up in your memories, but test them as well by your experience. Profwch a gwelwch yw'r adnod a ddarllenwn ni yn Psalm 34. Taste and see that the Lord is good. And in remembering that advice today, we turn to the wonderful words of our text, oherwydd y mae ef wedi dweud, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. What a promise, what a comfort. Yn gyntaf heddi, dwi am awgrymu sefyllfa ofnadwy, sef i ddychmygu bod Duw yn ein gadael ni a chefnu arno. My first heading for you today is to suggest a potentially awful situation in life, lost and forsaken by God. Being forsaken in life implies a state of utter loneliness, doesn't it? Many people will enjoy solitude and look forward to having some quality personal time. Time out, as it's referred to sometimes. But I don't think many enjoy a feeling of loneliness. Mae llawer un yn ystod y cyfnod clo, mae lockdown, wedi profi teimladau real ac annifyr o unigedd. A period of quiet solitude may give pleasure, but to be alone, to be totally alone, is a terrible thing. And to be alone without God is a loneliness emphasized. Yn ogystal ag unigedd ac unigrwydd, mae elfen o fod yn ddiamadferth ac yn ddiobeth yn dod i'r amlwg hefyd. Helplessness and hopelessness are other potential feelings. Many a person forsaken by other people can still have an element of hope. But to be forsaken by God is a truly hopeless situation. Heb Dduw, heb ddim oedd profiad y ran fwyaf o bobl slawer dydd. Ydyn ni wedi colli gafel, gwedwch, ar y gred a'r sicrwydd yna yn ein bywydau cyfoes cymhleth ni. If God should leave us as individuals, as a church, or as a society, take note of the result and consequences. I personally wouldn't like to imagine the loneliness, the emptiness, the sheer feeling of helplessness and hopelessness in my life without the presence of God. Tynnwch chi ddylanwad Iesu Grist oddi wrthych, dylanwad y capel a chrefydd ar eich bywyd, a beth sydd gennych ar ôl, gwedwch? Dim byd, dim llawer weden ni. When we describe being forsaken by God, isn't it of the greatest comfort to remember the words of our text this morning? For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So after considering a potentially awful situation, let's look for a moment at a glorious promise. So what's positively guaranteed? Nes I sôn wythnos ddiwetha yn y myfyrdod am y ddewid yr arglwydd yn darparu dŵr ar gyfer yr Israelied yn yr anialwch. A dyma un arall o addewidion mawr yr arglwydd. When we search the scriptures, we find that they are packed full of these gracious and glorious promises. What's guaranteed here? Ni thadawa fyth ac ni chefnaf arnat ddim. And what better way to illustrate this promise than to search the scriptures and note some examples found there. Mae'r cyntaf i'w ganfod yn llyfr Genesis, reit ar ddechrau'r Beibl, a ddewid wrth Jacob, ac wele fi gyda thi, ac mi ath gadwaf pa le bynnag ar elich, oherwydd nith a dawaf. God gives his promise to Jacob that he will be with him and keep him and never leave him. Now, this is a man, Jacob, of real trials. Consider his life for a moment. Major family fallouts, disputes over inheritance and property. Hear me. His father-in-law, Laban, deceives him and literally entraps him. Do you know, it's as if there's no new experience that people bear throughout the ages. As Jacob proved, so can each and every one of us prove. Ni ath gadwaf di, ple bynnag ar elich, I will keep you in all places where you go, even in the most terrible of circumstances. Mae enghraifft arall i'w gweld yn Deuteronomium. If the example in Genesis was concerning Jacob and his personal circumstances, the example of this same promise in Deuteronomy is made to a collective body, to the church as a whole. Moses ddwedodd wrth bobl Juda, ymgryfhewch ac ymnerthwch. Be strong and of good courage, fear not, nor be afraid, for the Lord your God goes with you, not fail you, nor forsake you. Chi'n cofio pennau enwog William Carey yn ei bregaeth fawr ar oes mewn gwirionedd fodolaeth i gymdeithas genhadol y bynyddwyr. Disgwyliwch bethau mawr oddi wrth yw. Mentrwch bethau mawr dros yw. Expect great things from God. Attempt great things for God. Those were William Carey's great headings in his sermon. Have we lost something of that spirit and vision in our churches today? Let's dare to do great things for God, and He's sure to bless us. Do you know, if the church would only know that God cannot leave her, she might well attempt greater things than she's ever done before, and the success of her attempts would be certain and assured. Ni fydd Duw yn gadael eglwys weddigar yn amddifad a heb gymorth. We find another occasion when this promise was made in the book of Joshua, when God says to Joshua, "There shall be no one able to stand before you all the days of your life. I will be with you. I will not fail you nor forsake you." Onid yw hynny'n galondid i bob Cristion yn ei genhadaeth a'i dystiolaeth bersonol? We as Christians, we who are called to bear the brunt of the front-line witness for Christ, let's lean on this promise and on the precious consolation of these. Mae yna lawer i adeg, yn enwedig yn ystod y misoedd diwethaf yma, oni bai am ffydd ac ymddiriedeth yn addewidion Duw a Iesu Grist, byddwn ni yn bersonol wedi danto'n llwyr yn hunan. One more example before moving on, and that given to David at the very end of his life. In 1 Chronicles, David speaks of what he himself, by experience, had proved to be true. Be strong and of good courage. There we have the same words again. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be dismayed, for the Lord will be with you. He will not fail you nor forsake you until you have finished all the work for the service of the house of the Lord. Gweddiw ninnau felly yn barhaus pob yr un ohonom ni, am ddigon o ras a nerth i allu dweud yn hyderus ar ddiwedd ein taith a'i arol ni, mi amdrechais ymdrech deg, mi a orffennais fy ngyrfa, mi a gedwais y ffydd. Therefore, having considered the potentially awful scenario of being forsaken by God, then the gracious promise given, what conclusions can we draw from all this? One of the most obvious is contentment, bodlondeb. Now, I've concentrated on the last part of this verse during the whole of our discourse today. But the opening words of the verse read like this: "Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you." Yna chi di sylwi cymaint o weithiau defnyddiwyd y gair dewrder, courage, yn yr enghreifftiau o'r ysglythurau yn gynharach. Dyna'n sicr un arall o ganlyniadau amlwg ar addewidion yma, courage to face the future. And also there's such ground and foundation for hope in these words that we should cast off any trace of despondency and hopelessness, although such things obviously come to life's journey, and very very nearly succeed in getting the better of us at times. These words are a rock for us in the midst of all the sinking sands of life's varying situations. Wrth sôn am dywod, mae'r stori gyfarwydd honno, footprints in the sand, yn dod I meddwl yn aml. I'm sure you've all heard the story of footprints in the sand before, but it's worth hearing again. One night, a man dreamt that he was walking along the beach with the Lord, and many scenes from his life flashed across the sky. In each scene, he noticed footprints in the sand. Sometimes there were two sets of footprints. Other times there were only one. Now, this bothered him because he noticed that during the low periods of his life, when he was suffering from anguish, sorrow, or defeat, he could only see one set of footprints. So he said to the Lord, "You promised me, Lord, that if I followed you, you would walk with me always. But I've noticed that during the most trying periods of my life, there has only been one set of footprints in the sand. Why? Why, when I needed you most, have you not been there for me?" And the Lord replied, "My precious child, I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you." I grynhoi'r cyfan, does dim arall sydd angen arno. There's nothing you can need nor ask for, nothing in this world or the next, nothing now or has been or shall be, nothing during this seemingly tempestuous and troubled time we live in that is not contained in this text. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Ni thadawa fyth ac ni chefna farnat ddim. Awn ymlaen felly yn hyderus yn y sicrwydd ei fod ef gyda ni nawr ac am byth, a hynny gogoniant i'w enw. Amen.